the 990 series return is a return filed by a nonprofit organization annually to report activities and financial information to the IRS. The 990 series consists of 4 different forms. You have the N, EZ, the 990, and the PF. An organization is going to file one of these 4 forms annually based on their financial status. If you qualify for a 990N form, a lot of organizations do choose to file a larger form just for fundraising and grant making purposes. A lot of grant application and donors want more information than what the 990N provides. So if you qualify for the 50,000 or less and the 990N form, it is your choice to choose a larger form such as the 990 EZ or 990 form so that you can use those documents when applying for grants or looking for donors and fundraising opportunities. However, if you qualify for the larger form such as the 990 EZ or the 990 form, you cannot choose the smaller 990N form just because you want to. You do have to file a larger form if your gross receipts and assets qualify for that larger form. If your organization is recognized as a private foundation with the IRS, which means your determination letter clearly states you are a private foundation, your organization is required to file a 990 PF regardless of any financial information. If you are a private foundation and choose to file the 990 EZ or N or 990 form, it will get rejected by the IRS and you'll have to start over. So make sure you're choosing the right form prior to getting started so you're not duplicating your efforts. The IRS may provide tax exempt status to a group of organizations if they are associated with a central organization. So a group exemption number is a 4-digit number assigned by the IRS to a central or parent organization of a group that categorizes all organizations within that group with the same exempt status. This eliminates the requirement for each organization to submit a separate exemption request. The only difference between a group exemption letter and an individual exemption letter is that the group exemption letter applies to multiple organizations. The filing procedures for exempt organizations remain the same regardless of a group exemption. Both the central organization and the subordinates must submit an annual 990 series return. If you believe your organization is part of a group, we do suggest contacting the IRS or the parent organization prior to filing for verification. We get so many questions about the penalties for filing late. If an organization files its 990 form after the due date, including any extensions, and the organization doesn't provide reasonable cause for filing late, the IRS may impose a penalty. So if your deadline is November 15th, and you don't file on November 15th, and you don't apply for an extension by November 15th, you're subjecting your organization to potential penalties. The organization may be subject to a penalty of $20 a day or $105 a day for large organizations for the late filing of the 990 series return. The penalty amount can go up to a maximum of $10,500 or 5% of the organization's annual gross receipts. For example, if the organization has gross receipts of $1,084,000 for the year, the penalty is $105 a day, which can go up to a maximum of $54,200. So it can be a significant amount of money based on what your organization brings in. And nonprofit organizations don't want to have to spend what little money they do receive on paying penalties to the IRS. So it's incredibly important that you file on time or ahead of time, or at least get an extension in on time so that you don't risk those penalties. Tax990 is unable to assist you in determining what your penalties may be. However, we do provide the option to include a reasonable cause explanation on the return. So if you are running late for filing, we would highly recommend indicating on the 990 series return that you have a reasonable cause explanation and thoroughly explaining why you're filing late. If you do have fees due to the IRS, you'll typically be contacted by mail with information on fees owed. The IRS will not text you. They don't tend to call you. Most of their communication is by USPS mail. It will come to you in your mailbox. So if you get a letter from the IRS saying you have fees due, then you'll need to contact the IRS and figure out what next steps you need to take, what kind of time frame you have to pay those, and follow the steps provided on the letter from the IRS. The schedules associated with the 990 series forms are a really big part of completing the 990 series returns, and it's so difficult to know what schedules are applicable towards your form and your organization. Tax990 supports 15 different schedules associated with the 990 series return. The necessary schedules will auto-generate based on the information you provide on the return when you use Tax990. I'm just going to quickly go through these different schedule options. We're not going to dig into them very deep. We have a webinar on our website. If you do want more information on the schedules, we recently did a webinar about the schedules specifically, so you can go to tax990.com/webinars and view that one if you need to. Or you can just reach out to our support team and we'd be happy to help answer some of those questions for you. Schedule A is going to be for organizations wanting to provide information about public charity status and public support. Schedule B is used to report contributions of money or property valued over $5,000. Schedule C is for organizations wanting to provide additional information on political campaigns or lobbying activities. Schedule D is for reporting supplemental financial information such as donor-advised funds and conservation easement, certain art and museum collections, escrow and custodial accounts, and arrangements, endowment funds. Schedule E is for organizations wanting to provide information on private schools. Schedule F is used to provide information on activities conducted outside of the United States by the organization at any time during the tax year. Schedule G is for organizations that need to provide information on fundraising services, fundraising events, and gaming activities. Schedule H is used to provide information on the activities, policies, and community benefit provided by the hospital facility and healthcare facility. Schedule I is used to provide information on grants and other assistance made by the filing organization during the tax year to domestic organizations, domestic governments, and domestic individuals. Schedule J is used by an organization to report compensation information for certain officers, directors, individual trustees, key employees, and highest compensated employees. Schedule L is for organizations that need to provide information on financial transactions or arrangements between the organization and a disqualified person or other interested person. Schedule M is used to report the types of non-cash contributions received during the year by the organization and certain information regarding such contributions. Schedule N is for organizations that want to be dissolved or dispose of at least 25% of their net assets. Schedule O is for the organizations that want to provide the IRS with descriptive answers required for specific questions. And Schedule R is used to provide information on related organizations. If any of these sound familiar to you, if you're thinking, oh, I think I did that, you don't have to put too much thought into it. As I mentioned with Tax990, based on how you complete the form and the answers that you respond, or how you respond to the questions on the form, the 990 form, the schedules are automatically going to generate. So if you don't answer a question that would require Schedule R will not generate. If you indicate you're a 501c3, Schedule A will generate. So we really try to take the guesswork out of it for you. If you're not using Tax990 to file your forms and you don't have this feature available to you, we would suggest reading into these instructions a little bit deeper to just make sure that you're providing the correct information on your form. But the 990 series forms are going to tell you what you need. The line item that's going to indicate the schedule you need will say, if yes, complete schedule, and it'll indicate the schedule. So it provides a little bit of guidance there. How long should an organization keep records for tax purposes? So often we get this question because it's such a big deal for people every year trying to dig through old documents and old files, trying to find the things that they need. So an organization should retain all the necessary records to substantiate any part of income, deduction, or credit for 3 years from the date when the return is filed or when the return is due. In addition, certain records like determination letters, the organization's tax-exempt status, articles of incorporation, bylaws, and board member minutes, those all need to be retained permanently. And other than this, all employment tax records must be retained for at least 4 years. It's important to keep all of these documents on hand. Again, if you apply for grants or funding or you're looking for donors, a lot of times they're going to want that additional information. They want to know if you're spending the money that you receive towards your exempt purpose, towards your mission. So making sure you have all of that available and in a good record keeping process is incredibly important. So as mentioned in a previous slide, an organization should keep the records of the determination letter provided by the IRS. The determination letter will clearly indicate the exempt status on record and the recommended 990 series form the organization should file annually. If your organization does not have a copy of the determination letter, call the IRS or use the IRS database to find that information. If you put the wrong exempt status on your form or the wrong tax year on your form, or you choose to file the wrong form, all of those could be cause for rejection on your return. So if you have your determination letter, you'll be able to avoid all of that misinformation and make sure you report it correctly with the first transmission. The IRS has a really great database available that you can just type in the EIN and find what documentation the IRS has in its database. So you can view your determination letter there if necessary. But it is important that you keep record of that and know what you're filing year after year. If your organization does fail to file for 3 consecutive years, it's likely that the tax-exempt status of the organization is going to be revoked. If this happens, the IRS will reject forms filed until the status is reinstated. More than likely, you'll get a letter from the IRS indicating that your status has been revoked. If the organization's tax-exempt status gets revoked automatically, you would need to submit an application to the IRS to reinstate that status. You can do this by filing the Form 1023, 1024, 1023EZ, and 1024A within 15 months of revocation. So you have to reapply within 15 months of the original revocation. When you apply for reinstatement, you should include a declaration with the application proving that the organization had a valid reason for not submitting the required annual return for at least one of those 3 consecutive years. Tax990 does not support the reinstatement process. However, if the IRS requests you file all of those missed years, we do support filing for the current and 2 prior years. As I mentioned, a lot of times the IRS will request that you back file missed years. So it's important that you take care of those things as well, but you still need to reapply for a tax exempt status. So in addition to the 1023, you may also have to do the 990 series forms. For additional information on revocation, you should contact the IRS directly. If your organization does not have an EIN, you cannot just use your parent organization EIN to file. The EIN is it's a unique 9-digit number provided to an organization by the IRS to identify the organization. If you don't have an EIN for your organization or employee identification number, you would need to request one by filing the Form SS4, which is an application for employee identification number. If you file a return with the wrong EIN, your return will likely be rejected. The IRS keeps a record of everything your organization provides it using that specific 9-digit number. So if you use the wrong number, it can't connect it to your organization. My organization has subordinate organizations. Can I file a group return? You can file a group return for all of your subordinate organizations, that fall under a group exemption, provided that your subordinate organizations are affiliated with the central organization at the time its tax year ends. However, a subordinate organization can also choose to file their annual information return separately instead of filing as a group return. In that case, the organization must file the individual form and must use its own EIN and not that of the central organization or group return. This gets a little bit sticky, so if you do have questions regarding this, we would suggest contacting the central organization or confirm with the IRS that your EIN can take those steps. If you have changes to your governing body, you do need to notify the IRS, or if you change bylaws, any of that information, you would need to provide a document that has details of the changes made to the organization's governing body and bylaws, and it needs to be signed by an officer in the authority, and you would need to send that to the IRS directly. If you just decide to randomly make those changes when you file your 990 series return, you do risk it being rejected, again, for not matching the information the IRS has in their database. Similarly, to change an accounting period, an organization can file a short year tax period 990 series return. If you provide a tax period that does not match the IRS database, it again is likely to get rejected. If you file a short year and you indicate on the return that you're filing a short year because you're changing your tax period, then it will have a higher chance of being accepted. So a short tax period is a taxable year that is less than 12 months. So for example, say a foundation following a calendar tax year decides to change its accounting period to a fiscal year ending October 31st. So the organization would file a 990 series return with a short tax period that begins January 1st and it would end October 31st. They would mention on the form that they're making a change in the accounting period, and then they would transmit the form. Now the organization's new accounting period would begin November 1st and end October 31st, and that is what they would need to choose moving forward. An organization cannot change its accounting period on a 990N for the short tax period. You would have to submit a 990 EZ or Form 1128 if you need to change your accounting period. When you do this, when you work through this process, there's a few things that you would need to keep in mind. When you file your short year, to make the initial change, we would suggest confirming with the IRS that they have updated your accounting period before filing for your new accounting period, just for confirmation so that your new return does not get rejected. We don't hear a lot about parachute payments, but it does occasionally come up. So I just wanted to briefly touch on the parachute payments. They're considered payments that include compensation, bonuses, severances, payments that occur due to a change in control of the organization, and other similar payments. An organization that makes a parachute payment of more than $1 million to any covered employee is required to file Form 4270, excuse me. If you're not sure if this qualifies for you or your organization, we would suggest contacting an accountant. That's a significant amount of money and needs to be confirmed. We don't want to confirm or deny that information per your specific organization. So make sure you're checking in with an accountant, a CPA, or the IRS. The IRS requires every exempt organization to make its Form 990 filing available for public inspection and copying. The annual return copy of Form 990 must include all the information furnished to the IRS, including all the statements, attachments, and supporting documents. The information in the form is used for the public and any individual who researches an organization to know about its mission, program accomplishments, and finances. It also provides an option for people and donors interested in supporting a particular organization by evaluating them based on its accomplishments done by the organization. You can search for a nonprofit's organization 990 form with the IRS. However, many nonprofit organizations make their information return public either through a website post, formal notice, or upon request. Since Form 990 provides valuable information for donors and the public, every nonprofit organization should ensure that the information return is filed correctly and on time. Okay, we'll take a couple minutes to do a live Q&A. If you go ahead, post your questions in the chat, and we can answer them here live during the webinar. We'll just take a few minutes so you have time to post those questions. Okay, we have one question. Is it mandatory for nonprofits to use an e-file provider? Yes, as of 2019, the IRS requires tax-exempt organizations to e-file their annual return. And in order to do that, you do have to use an e-file provider. Tax990 is an IRS authorized e-file provider. We've been around for over 12 years filing the 990 series returns. Okay, we have one more. Do you need a reason for a 6-month extension? That is a good question. No, if you are not able to file your return on time and you need to file the 8868 extension form, it does not require a reason. You can just file the form, submit it to the IRS. Very seldomly do those extension forms get rejected, but it does not ask for a reason for extension on the form. If your tax exempt status was revoked and it's been more than 15 months, first we would suggest contacting the IRS to confirm what next steps you would need to take. Likely it's going to be just filing a 1023 form and starting over. Kate is wondering if amended returns tend to trigger an audit. We have not come across any situation such as that. But again, that would be a question for the IRS because we don't deal with audits. We only deal with transmitting the returns to the IRS. Oftentimes, we don't hear about anything after that fact. So I would suggest contacting the IRS or a tax professional like a CPA or an accountant and ask them directly if they've encountered anything like that. We have a question about how to enter activity outside of the US. All of the questions that pertain to that will have a box that you can check to indicate whether it was a foreign activity. So you can indicate there on the form anything that asks for an address. There's an option to indicate if it was a foreign address. There's also several questions on the form asking if you participated in any foreign activity throughout the tax year. If you've just received tax exempt status, if you're a new nonprofit organization, you would still have to file by your deadline. And we're going to talk about the deadlines here in a minute. But your deadline is the 15th day of the 5th month after your tax year ends. So even as a new organization, you would still have to file 5 months after your tax year ended. For the Schedule B contributor information, you are still required to post Schedule B for public review, but you can, we don't provide the option to hide the addresses because we're sending the information to the IRS, but you can hide the addresses on the Schedule B for the information that you post for public view. We will make these slides. I can send them to anybody in a PDF. I can send them to you directly. We don't post the PDF version on the website, but we will post the live version on the website. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on. Aubrey is still here to assist with questions along the way, and we'll have another Q&A at the end. Again, if they are specific tax questions or specific on how you should report your own personal information, we cannot answer those questions, and you would have to speak to an accountant or a tax advisor. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk just a little bit about the deadlines. I think I've said a couple of times already that we're focusing on the November 15th deadline, which the nonprofit sector has a deadline every month based on the organization's tax year. But there are two very common deadlines that we have a main focus on throughout the year, which would be the January 1st through December 31st tax year, which provides a May 15th deadline, or the July 1st through June 30th tax year, which provides a November 15th deadline. There's just a lot of organizations with one of those two tax years. However, an organization can have any of the tax years that are listed here on the screen, which is why the nonprofit sector, like I mentioned, has a deadline every single month. So your annual 990 series return must be filed by the 15th day of the 5th month following the end of the organization's tax year. So right now, as I mentioned, we're focusing on November 15th. However, we're also focusing on the October 15th deadline, but because October 15th falls on a weekend, it's moved to October 16th. So if the 15th day of the month falls on a weekend or federal holiday, the deadline's moved to the next business day. As I mentioned, if you are short on time, if you're not able to file by your deadline, you can file an 8868 extension form to apply for a 6-month deadline extension. If you do have a November 15th deadline, you can start filing that now. You can reach out to our support team and we'd be happy to help you get started so you have plenty of time to work on those returns. As I mentioned, Tax990, we are a market-leading IRS authorized e-file provider. We have over a decade of experience e-filing tax forms. When you file with Tax990, we do offer excellent live customer support. We have competitive pricing and we have options to file for previous years as well as amended returns. Since the IRS mandated e-filing, Tax990 is your obvious solution for electronically filing your annual 990 series returns. And I'm going to speak a little bit about why. Tax990 has some really great features that we offer to help ease the process and keep your records in order for you and help you year after year with filing those returns. So with Tax990, we perform an internal audit after you've completed the return, and this verifies that the requirements from the IRS form instructions have been met. The audit helps verify that your calculations are accurate and the necessary schedules are generated. We also provide the auto calculations, which helps remove the guesswork from filing by calculating several areas of the return. For example, when you input all of your different categories of revenue, the total revenue will calculate accordingly. We also provide the acceptance letter or rejection notice in the case that your return is rejected by the IRS. Tax990 provides the reason for the IRS rejection and allows you to resolve and retransmit the return at no additional cost. So for example, if the IRS rejected your return because the tax year provided does not match what the IRS has in their database, you'll be able to edit the information on the return and retransmit it. It's also important to know if your return was accepted. So once the IRS provides a status update, you'll receive an email with an acceptance notice. The IRS acceptance letter will be available in your account for your records. When filing from year to year, we understand a lot of the information remains the same. So we provide the ability to transfer information directly from a prior year return. When filing consecutive years, the organization information, public charity status, books are in the care of details, Schedule B contributor names and addresses, list of officers, and prior year revenue and expenses can all be transferred to the current year return. This is an optional feature, and the information can be changed once the transfer is made, which leaves it very customizable. And as we've discussed, we also include the schedule, so we understand that it's not always easy to know what additional information is required on your return. So we help determine what schedules are required based on the information you provide on the form, and the schedules will automatically generate for you to complete, as well as just the necessary parts of the schedule. So you won't be completing parts that aren't applicable to your organization or your responses. You'll only be required to complete the information specific to your responses. Whether you assist in the filing process for multiple organizations or you're only filing for one organization, you can manage all your details from the same Tax990 account. And your organization information saves in the account, so when it comes time to file each year, you just choose which organization you're filing for, and the name, EIN, address, and principal officer information will auto-generate. We get a lot of questions about the signature portion of the form, so when you're filing on behalf of your organization that you work for, a signature is not required by the IRS. You'll only be asked to provide the officer information and title, the name of the officer and the title, in a typed format on the form. There is no physical signature required when you're completing it on behalf of your organization. If you're filing as a paid preparer for a client or for an organization, you'll have the option to complete the 8453TE form. It's an electronic form that you send to your client, and they can electronically sign it and send it back, and it automatically uploads on the form for you. We do understand that some of the forms can take a significant amount of time and be a lengthy process. So when you file your return with Tax990, you can come and go as you please, and the information you enter is saved automatically. And since we offer a cloud-based program, you can access your account from anywhere at any time and pick up where you left off. We get a lot of questions saying, well, can I still transmit my return at midnight, even though you're not in the office? Yes, it's cloud-based. Anytime that you have time, you can go in your account and work on and transmit your return. We also understand that most organizations have been paper filing for years and prefer to review the return prior to transmitting or while working through the process. So you'll have access to a draft PDF while you work on the form. And when you finalize and transmit the return, you'll have access to a professional copy for your records. The professional copy will remain in your account, so you can print or download it at any time. The process of filing a return with Tax990 is a quick 5-step process. You'll add your organization to the account. You'll choose the form that you need to complete. You'll fill it out. Then you'll go through the internal audit. You'll have the option to share the return, if necessary, with other members of the organization or with a financial advisor or whoever you need to share it with, and then you transmit it to the IRS. We'll do one more quick Q&A before we finish up here. So again, if you want to go ahead and post your questions in the chat, we can answer them along the way. If you have specific questions about your account, please email us directly so we can take a look at the account and be able to provide you the best answers. We do have a question about the option to upload completed documents. We do not provide the option to upload completed documents. You do have to completely fill out the form on tax990.com using our filing formats. Sorry, I'm having a hard time understanding a couple of these questions, so I'm trying to read through them and understand what's being asked. Yes, we do have the auto calculation does apply to the depreciation as well. Nancy, I don't know if I'm responding appropriately to your question, but you can only file one form per tax year. So if you file the 990 EZ short form and it's accepted by the IRS, you wouldn't be able to file an additional form. If you're mentioning like a short tax year and then another form, Tax990 at this time does not provide the option to file multiple forms for the same tax year. So you can only file one 2022 return per one 2021 return. You can't file two returns for 2022. Hopefully that somehow answered your question. The PDF copy of the form is available in the account. So when you're working on it, on the home page, there's an option to print a PDF, which will look like the IRS PDF form copy of the document. If you have questions on the price for Tax990, please go to tax990.com and there's a pricing tab. It is a per form price. We do not have subscription or annual fees that we're going to automatically charge you. You're only charged when you file the return. But like I said, it is a per form. It's based on the form that you choose. So take a look at it, tax990.com. On the upper right, there's a pricing tab. All right, you guys, those were really great questions. Thank you for participating and throwing those out there. It always helps to know what people are wondering. It helps us prepare our next webinar a little bit better based on what you guys need help with and what you have questions on. So I appreciate that. We're just about finished up here. So we do offer, as I've mentioned, we have live customer support that's dedicated and personalized and available. You won't need to be on hold for several hours. When you need assistance with your return, you can give us a call or reach out via chat or email. We're here to help you along the way. As the November 15th deadline approaches, our wait times may be longer, but if you give us a call, leave a voicemail, we will return your call, or send us an email. We will always respond to our emails. We'll return your calls. We will reach back out to you. Like I said, you can get started on your return now. So you have plenty of time to work on it. More than likely, if you call, you might even be talking to me. So I'd love to chat with you a little bit further. So reach out to us if you need help. We do have a really great blog and YouTube channel with so many helpful tips and tricks, different navigation, different features, how to work through the account. The blog page that we offer has so much helpful information that breaks down the different parts of your organization, the different parts of your form, and tips and tricks. So please check those out when you have some time. We have a few other webinars coming up in our educational series leading up to the November deadline. So in a couple weeks, we're going to look at the 990 PF and the qualifications for that. So if you are interested in, if you need to file the 990 PF or you just want to learn more about it, you can register for that webinar. If you are filing the 990N or want to learn more about the 990N, and if you qualify, we're going to be deep diving into the 990N on November 2nd. And then the 13th, we're going to just do a live Q&A similar to today, but more time spent on the questions that you guys have. So you can register for all of those webinars now if you would like to at tax990.com/webinar. Otherwise, we will send some emails out over the next couple of weeks to give you a direct link to register for those. And that is it. Thank you guys for attending today. Thank you for participating. Like I said, give us a call, send us an email. We look forward to connecting with you. Have a great rest of your day.